Good evening, I'm John Carter and welcome to Poland Daily. A video has appeared on the internet of a 15-year-old boy with a cross in his hand attempting to stop the LGBT parade marching through the city of Płock. The teenager, Jakub Bauera, has stopped by the police, but the boy's gesture has caused a wave of support. There was also plenty of hate and criticism levelled at the teenager.
Jakub Bauera explained that his gesture was done in reference to the actions of Father Ignacy Skorupka during the Warsaw Battle with the Bolsheviks in 1920.
The idea of blocking the Equality March with a cross in my hand came to me when I saw the information about the parade in Płock for the first time. Making a gesture similar to that of Father Ignacy Skorupka during the Warsaw Battle with the Bolsheviks in 1920 should give people food for thought and make them reflect. At one point, I gave up this idea because of social consequences. I was afraid of how people would react to it. However, when I saw the miraculous image of Our Lady of Częstochowa with a rainbow halo during the Equality March in Płock, I decided that I had to do it. I asked for a cross from a priest in a Płock parish. The priest was afraid of possible profanation of the Holy Cross by atheists, but gave me the cross nonetheless. I wanted as many people as possible to see my gesture. I wanted it to make them reflect and talk about the issue at hand. The symbol is extremely important and has been recognized by the Pope in Castel Gandolfo. It is a picture showing priest Skorupka who, with this cross, stops this red plague. It is a very good symbol for these times, referring to Archbishop Jędrzejewski, who compared the rainbow plague to the red plague and earlier the black plague, which tried to control and take over our hearts and souls.
Most internet users considered the gesture of the 15-year-old to be a heroic act, although there were voices trying to diminish the whole situation or even ridicule Jakub Bauera.
If we were to belittle all 15-year-olds just because they are 15 and suggest their actions have no meaning, this would lead to absurdity. Let me remind you that in the Warsaw Uprising, a very large part of the insurgents were the so-called grey ranks, i.e. 12, 13, 14-year-old boys. A typical 15-year-old was no one extraordinary back then. In any case, I would not look at this behavior only from the perspective of the person's age, but look at the meaning and message that accompanies it.
The 15-year-old ensures that Saturday's initiative was his own idea. Jakub Bauera is a councillor at the Płock Youth Council.
Despite the controversy regarding the misuse of government-funded flights taken by the Speaker of the Polish Parliament, the ruling party has not lost support. According to a survey conducted by IBRIS for the newspaper Rzeczpospolita, the Law and Justice Party are currently on course to take 41.2% of the vote, which will give them 243 mandates and a majority in Parliament.
The opposition, divided into three blocs, remains far behind the Law and Justice Party. According to a survey conducted by IBRIS for the Rzeczpospolita newspaper, the Civic Coalition would get 27% of the votes, while the left-wing alliance would get 11.6%. The Polish People's Party, together with the Kukiz 15 movement, would get 6.5%. The Confederation and non-partisan local government activists would not cross the electoral threshold, receiving 2.8% and 1.8% of the votes.
Argentine voters soundly rejected President Mauricio Macri's austere economic policies in the primary elections on Sunday, raising serious questions about his chances of re-election in October. A coalition backing opposition candidate Alberto Fernandez, whose running mate is former President Cristina Kirchner, led by a wider-than-expected 14 percentage points with 47.1% of the votes.
Voters were given a clear choice: complete the course of painful austerity measures under Macri or choose to return to interventionist Peronist economics. It hurts that today we did not have all the support that we hoped for, but tomorrow we will continue working and making ourselves accountable. We are now all the more responsible for getting this country ahead. So, get some sleep and let's start working tomorrow morning. Thank you very much. The opposition candidate, Alberto Fernandez, is trying to distance himself from the former government of his current running mate, the left-wing populist Cristina Kirchner. We haven't come to restore a regime. We have come to create a new Argentina for the best opportunities to end with this era of lies and to create a better horizon for Argentines into the future. Analysts predicted a slide in Argentine stock and bond prices if Fernandez achieved a lead of more than 5 to 6 percentage points. In the end, the lead turned out to be more than 14 points. Market analysts now fear an escalating economic crisis. The truth is, it seems to me that Argentines haven't learned much in all these years. I think a hard Kirchnerism is going to come back to the government, which I think is bad news. Equally, President Macri is a bad manager of the economy, who applied a gradualism that didn't really work. Meanwhile, Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro commented on the result of Sunday's election, saying a migration crisis along Brazil's southern border, similar to the one along its northern border with Venezuela, could develop if the leftist ticket led by Alberto Fernandez and Cristina Kirchner wins the general election. Don't forget what happened in yesterday's Argentine elections. The gang of former President Cristina Kirchner, which is the same as the gang of Dilma Rousseff, Nicolas Maduro, Hugo Chavez and Fidel Castro, gave signs of life. If these leftists return to power in Argentina, we could have a similar situation as we have with Venezuela, from which masses of people are fleeing to Brazil. And we don't want that. Our Argentine brother is fleeing here. This is a possibility if the results of the elections held yesterday are confirmed in the general election in October. In order to win the presidency outright, a candidate needs at least 45% of the vote. The first round of the election will take place on October 27th. If there is no clear winner, voters will return for a runoff on November 24th.
The government crisis in Italy is deepening, with Minister of the Interior Matteo Salvini convinced that the coalition government between his Lega party and the Five Star Movement has ceased to exist. Today, Italian politicians returned to Rome from their vacation for a meeting ahead of a session in the Senate dedicated to setting a timetable for handling the government crisis.
Matteo Salvini has spent the last couple of days in a number of seaside resorts in what seems to be a combination of a vacation and election campaign. Speaking to the press, Salvini stated that he believes it to be unlikely for a new coalition government to be formed by the Socialist Party and the Five Star Movement, and that a snap election is the only way forward. The Italian president, Sejm, is in charge of this situation. It seems clear to me that there is no longer a government, there is no longer a majority, and if someone believes that Italy can be governed for years by former Prime Minister Matteo Renzi and the Five Star Movement founder Beppe Grillo, maybe they think it's possible because of an August heat stroke. The only concrete, sincere, transparent, effective, democratic solution is to get Italians to vote. We are in a democracy. It should be the best thing in the world to get citizens to vote. Political analysts claim that by calling for a snap election, Salvini wants to capitalize on the high level of support for his party in opinion polls, likely to be enough to guarantee him the position of Prime Minister in the next government.
Well, Salvini, it's very clear what Salvini wants. He's been in campaign mode, really, since before the European Parliament elections in May, and he's stayed in campaign mode ever since. His popularity has surged since the government was formed on his very hardline stance on immigration. He has this man of the people image, which Italians, well, a lot of Italians seem to like very much. And he wants to cash in on that popularity. The League is now by far Italy's most popular party, and Salvini's must have some concern that, you know, these magic moments can come and go. And he wants to make sure it doesn't go before he can, capitalise, hopefully trigger elections and come to power on his own.
However, some voters hope that Salvini and the leader of the Five Star Movement will be able to reach an agreement.
I think that Di Maio and Salvini should try to get along with each other. Five Star have achieved a lot, and the economy is doing much better now, particularly with their citizen income policies. And Salvini as well has achieved a lot. Sicily was invaded by migrants. This isn't a question of racism, but there are too few jobs available for us, and if we take in all these people, there will be no more work left. I think Salvini and Di Maio are two great people who should make peace for the the good of Italy.
Prendiamo queste persone qua, è finito il lavoro per tutti noi.
Thank you very much for joining me here this evening at Poland Daily. I'm John Carter. Stay tuned after the break for Poland Daily weather. It's followed by the business, culture, history and finally the travel.